Well, hi everybody, welcome to Afterburner. I'm Bill Woodall. Sociologists tell us that one of the most important forces acting on our individual psyches is the phenomenon known as social proof. Now, we used to call social proof peer pressure. That is the almost overpowering psychological need for most people to do what others are doing, to not stand out in a crowd. And to get an idea of the power of social proof, one psychologist has a suggestion regarding what you should do if you should have a heart attack on a busy street in New York City, let's say. Because if you go down and the first person behind you looks at you and then just keeps on walking, well, that will establish a behavioral precedent for everyone else, and you very likely will just die there with people walking right past you. It's not that they're bad people, and it's not that they lack compassion. It's just that in a stressful situation, the compulsion to do what everyone else is doing is almost overwhelming. The psychologist, by the way, recommends that you break through that herd mentality and say, hey, you with the blue blazer, call 911, I'm having a heart attack. And that's pretty much exactly what they'll do. Social proof is what makes you keep quiet when other people are spouting nonsense. Psychologists have discovered that most of us would rather bury our most deeply held core values than be seen to be different, especially when different is perceived to be worse. Which brings us to the point. 2014, I think, is going to be a bad year for President's social proof, but not as bad as 2015, which is going to look like a cakewalk compared to 2016. Now, why do I say this? Well, let's go to the classic tale of social proof, courtesy of Hans Christian Andersen. A vain emperor delights in showing off the most opulent finery. A pair of swindlers, posing as weavers, promise to create for him a suit of such splendor and magnificence that only those unfit for office or irredeemably stupid cannot see it. A few weeks later, they return with armloads of nothing and pretend to drape pantaloons and tunics and waistcoats over the emperor, who is too terrified of being seen as stupid or unfit to say anything. He oohs and ahs, and when his ministers, who also know that only stupid or incompetent people cannot see the fabric, well, they all ooh and ah as well, and the word gets out, and the emperor parades in his underwear down the streets of his capital city, and every single person yells and cheers and faints dead away from the sheer magnificence of the clothes that are not there. And then finally, a small boy who didn't get the memo shouts out loud, "But he's not wearing any clothes." Which is why President's social proof is, in my opinion, in real deep trouble. You can spin the failure of the Obamacare website, you can even spin the enrollment numbers, but you can't spin the cancellation notices, and you can't spin the fact that when he said if you like your policy, you can keep your policy, he was lying. Now, that collision with reality was the boy at the end of the parade, and the problem for this President's social proof is that once people realize you are naked, a legion of town criers screaming, "Prithee no, he's fully clothed in garbs of great magnificence," just doesn't work. In other words, once people believe that you're a liar, you can't undo that. Once they believe that you're a liar, you're naked and you're done. So, President's social proof, elected not because of qualifications or skill or competence or experience, but simply because everyone else was voting for him, cannot get his poll numbers, which are now lower than any other president than Nixon at this point in his second term, back up again. Why? Well, because he's a glamour. He was an illusion. Once unmasked, you don't get that back. Once you start to pay attention to the little man behind the curtains pulling the levers, the great and powerful Oz illusion is over. It's just a little fraud run by a petty con man. I mean, what's Obama going to do? Kill bin Laden? No, people are starting to ask questions now, and the more they ask, the more nervous and uncomfortable he seems. The more uncomfortable and surly and thin-skinned he seems, the more the entire act looks like a fraud. And I believe we will see a meltdown not only of Barack Obama, but of all of progressivism that will so disgust the American people that they won't be trying this again for 40 years, just long enough for affluence to seem like the default state of mankind once more. So I say, let's get on our horses, draw our sabers, and run these Marxists into the river. I say, let them have their policies, and when they fail, we ride them down and mock them for the incompetent loser weenies that they are, and then we run them into the river. And it's not going to be Boehner or McConnell or the RNC or any of those guys. It's going to be us. They're demoralized, they're terrified, and they're on the run. Run them into the river. And as we enter 2014, we've got the skier on them. So I say saddle up, draw our sabers, sound the charge, and run these hollow people with their hollow ideas right into the river. It's going to be fun.